Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am Average Joe, the Average Geek, and you are tuning into my little Last Jedi Roundtable discussion. Hold on. What is this? Okay. Like right in my ear. All right. So, that being said, I am Average Joe, the Average Geek. Welcome to this Last Jedi Roundtable discussion. I'm with my good buddies, Nick Thompson, Shane Barzanti, Will Smith. Y'all know Will Smith. He's one of my co-hosts from Exploring Star Trek Discovery, found weekly here on this channel. How's it going, fellas?
We're doing good. Good.
Yeah. Oh my God, this movie, guys. All right, for everybody watching, this is going to be an extremely spoiler-heavy. Getting a call from Kevin. He's going to have to change streams. Getting a real spoiler-heavy kind of roundtable deep dive into The Last Jedi. So if you have not seen the movie, go ahead and cut this stream off, bookmark it, come back, watch it later. I'm sure we'll have a part 2 of this discussion later on because I don't think we're going to get all the way through it tonight in about an hour. So please, by all means, if you have not seen The Last Jedi, please do yourself a favor, put this down, go get a ticket, go watch the movie. And a little bit more disclaimer, if you are looking for guys to take a big steaming dump on this movie because Snoke is Snoke and not Plagueis, and that Rey is not a Kenobi or a Skywalker, and Luke Skywalker isn't Galen Merrick the Star Killer, you are in for a rude awakening. So let me go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and send Kevin an invite right now because he is calling the other line. All right. So before we get into the deep dive of the whole plot and we start really digging into it, what did you guys think of the movie?
I mean,
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jason Bullock's a buddy of mine from college. He said in the chat room, said the movie basically just said screw your theories.
Absolutely. Everything we thought we knew was gone.
Just completely wrong.
Is what. But I wanted that so badly. Like it was so wonderful to be just completely amazed with everything that was happening without having a clue as to what the next term was going to bring.
All right, hey everybody, we got a Brett Campbell on the stream. Welcome to the stream, Brett.
Hey Jeff.
For y'all that this guy right here, Brett, is known as Metalli, and he actually does the music on my channel. So
more to come.
And hey, we got Kevin. Ha!
Yeah!
Wow! All right, we got a full house for this show, guys. So
yes, we do.
Fantastic. Now we can all just be nerds together. Exclusive pops, always a good thing. Yeah. I don't really know.
Can I start us? I got one word.
Yes, please, Shane. By all means.
One name, Leia. Let's just talk about Leia, please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, our princess.
Everything that we had talked about with Leia, and everything that we had just assumed with her Force powers and her Force sensitivity. Holy hell!
Oh, without a doubt.
I mean, she has a level of strength in the Force that, like, I've only seen before in Masters that I was completely not expecting to see.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that particular scene blew me away because, God rest Carrie Fisher, I really didn't expect to see her continue on after this episode. And in that moment, when you see the strength that she has in the Force and what happens, I don't think my heart was beating for that.
Yeah, we had the joy of watching this movie in a 100% sold out theater, which was best way to ever watch a Star Wars movie is in a sold out theater. That scene when Kylo Ren hesitates and he doesn't pull the trigger on the concussion missiles, but these other two TIE fighters come in and blow open the bridge and she's sucked into space. You could feel everyone in the theater just hold their breath collectively. She's like, and nobody took a breath for that in the entire.
That's exactly what happened.
And it was
felt that in a theater that wasn't anywhere near.
It was an amazing thing to see. And we all know that Leia is strong in the Force. She is a Skywalker, but she never trained as a Jedi. She was supposed to be Luke Skywalker's first student, but took a different path. But maybe she never really was trained. But she didn't have to be.
Never have been. No, and I think that's something that we definitely see throughout this movie is like that need to be trained and taught is just thrown out the window.
Agreed.
As a big EU nerd, which is all the all the Legends stuff now, and throughout that, even for years, Leia was like, "Oh, I'm not even going to worry about it. I'm just going to be a diplomat." And I realized that has no connection to current canon. But to have that background and know that like she knows that she has strength, but she doesn't develop it and doesn't work on it, and then to see this, it's shocking.
It was beautiful and powerful. And when John Williams' Leia's theme kicks in, oh God, the feels,
perfect.
Just the emotions and the tears, and first 5 minutes of the movie, the tears are already flowing. And I was just like, wiping my eyes, like crying like a baby during that sequence, and I am not ashamed. Yeah, it was gorgeous. It was beautiful, and a lot of people said, "Oh, it's unrealistic. You can't do that. If you go into space, you blow up," which is not scientifically accurate in the least. You don't die immediately when you go into a vacuum. I mean, you die pretty quickly, but you don't die immediately.
It's science fantasy. It's not science fiction.
Exactly. It's space fantasy, not hard science fiction. And we have to remember that, it's telling a larger, greater story beyond what you would see in a harder sci-fi story like Star Trek. The whole like Star Trek versus Star Wars debate is garbage to me because they're different types of stories. Star Wars is closer to Lord of the Rings than it is Star Trek.
Mm. And it's been touched upon so many times before about the importance of these characters as archetypes in mythos. I mean, these are Olympians. We are seeing the story of Olympian characters play out here. I don't need it to be like, oh, well, this is exactly oh, there's no sound in space. None of this is going to happen. You're not going to hear the droids beeping.
Right.
Yeah, that doesn't matter to the story.
Exactly. Yeah, and seeing her reach out with the Force and pull herself back in. People are like, oh, she was flying. No, she wasn't flying. She was using telekinesis. She was pulling
herself
Who
back.
thought that she was flying?
Dude, avoid fan conversations about this movie. Like the plague. Just stay out of the Star Wars groups.
Comment boards right now.
No, I've seen some of it. I just hadn't seen that. It's that whole like, the Force Awakens was just derivative and it's copying everything and we want something unique and new and novel and and this is horrible. And then you give what they want. What is this? What is this? This is horrible. You're completely twisting and ripping apart Star Wars. How dare you?
Exactly.
This isn't the Star Wars from my childhood.
Yeah.
My childhood is ruined.
You know, and it is not the same Star Wars as our childhood. It's not the same stories that we grew up with. It has taken the canon as a whole. This movie has elements from the prequel trilogy and Clone Wars and Rebel and the original trilogy and the canon novels, and it all just comes together to propel the saga somewhere new. You know, for the first time going into a Star Wars story, there are no longer any preconceived notions.
I mean,
There
we
are
got
no
to see two
rules.
brand new Force powers.
We saw new Force powers. It's like
I
some
mean, we get to
pretty
see-
legit ones.
We get to
Yeah.
see Leia, who we've all assumed was, like you said earlier, the strongest Skywalker in the Force, just untrained. Completely will herself back to life and pull herself to safety,
Yeah.
while at the same time, and okay, that's grand enough as it is, but then later on to see an astral projection through the Force, I mean, that's mind blowing.
Yeah, and we will get to Jedi
That's a whole conversation.
Master Luke
Yes.
Skywalker. Jedi
I mean, okay.
Master
Can we-
Luke Skywalker soon.
Can we put to rest the
Not to
argument of who the
mention-
greatest Jedi Master of all time is now and officially say it is Luke Skywalker?
Yeah.
I think there's a debate to be had there. Yeah.
Not to mention him projecting. Not to mention the dice. Him projecting the dice so
Yes.
he'd be so powerful.
Yes.
The
Oh, yeah.
projection of the
Oh.
dice lasting after he died. Yeah.
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 Oh.
Oh my God.
We will get to Luke.
That's
That's
down the road.
a whole conversation that we're gonna have to table for right in a second, and we're gonna move into that direction. Jason Bullock in chat pulls up a really great thing. He says, "Am I the only one who thought Leia's best part was slapping Poe?"
That was pretty fun.
That was good.
It was great.
And I
don't
really
know.
liked how her and Holdo agreed later on that he was reckless, he was brash, he was everything. They made him think he was everything they didn't want him to be, and yet that's exactly who they wanted him to be.
Absolutely. He just needed a little growth. He just needed
Yes.
He just needed to know. Like Leia says, one of the best lines in the movie was Poe's like, "There was heroes on that mission," and she goes, "Dead heroes and
Dead
no
heroes.
leaders and no leaders."
Yep.
Like that's some serious comment right there. You can see Poe just kind of go, "Oh, okay."
Leia was laying the heavy
Yeah.
the whole movie. She was grounding. I mean, she was grounding Poe. She was grounding everyone. She was playing in realism.
And I don't know if the gravitas in her performance was us projecting her death onto that and giving it all just so much more weight. But Leia was the emotional center of this movie.
Yes.
I've always thought in the original trilogy, Leia is the strongest character in the original trilogy. She has the most reason to fall to the dark side and be evil, but she is never even remotely tempted by it. I mean, she lost her homeworld, her family. She lost everybody and everything around her, you know. And then going into The Force Awakens, she lost her marriage. You know, her
Even
and
before
Han
that, she
being
lost
estranged.
Han.
She lost Han
Even
in Empire
twice.
Strikes Back. Yeah, she lost Han in Empire, and then in between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens, their marriage falls apart, and then she loses her son to the dark side. You know, if anybody in the Star Wars saga is justified in just being a rage monster, it would be Leia. And she's not. She is what it means to be good in Star Wars.
Well, and just to the juxtaposition between that and the beacon of hope that she has been through this entire thing, and R2D2 being a little shit when Luke is like, "There's nothing you can say," and pulling out that message from
Oh,
God
man.
knows how, like
Who cried?
you are our only hope. Yeah. Oh,
Who cried?
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, 6 grown men right here,
Guilty.
and we all cried when that hologram
100%.
popped out.
Would it have been that emotional if Carrie Fisher hadn't just recently passed? I don't know. Probably still. But to see that again was pretty powerful. That was a great move on Rian Johnson's part.
Oh, absolutely. And when Luke goes, that was a cheap shot. Like, yeah, it was. And
It was.
oh, that was so great, man. Like, just everything revolving around Leia in this movie was good. And later on in the film, when Sam I am in chat goes, very important question, is Chewie a vegan now?
I can't tell what
Poor Chewie, he was just hungry.
That was awesome. I don't know, maybe. Everything revolving Leia in this film was beautiful. And like I said, the gravitas of Carrie Fisher's death just added another layer onto her performance. Even when, Poe, mutinies against Admiral Holdo, and he's holding the bridge down and the door blows open and in comes Leia and she just shoots him.
Shoots him. Yep. Fantastic.
Just stuns him. Great note. Kevin pointed this out last night, using the same sporting blaster she had in A New Hope. Same model blaster she used in
Same one. Yep.
That was
Of course,
great.
Kevin would recognize that and realize that.
That should be all right. Super fun.
Oh, loved Leia. Loved Leia. Well, since we talked about Leia, we might as well talk about her counterpoint into this movie, Admiral Holdo. Admiral Emmeline Holdo, played by Laura
God, did
Dern.
I hate her when she jumped on the screen.
Oh man, I wanted to hate her. But
I
every
did
time,
for like the first 10 minutes.
yeah, I was determined. Like, I'm gonna hate this woman. I don't like her. And then every time she spoke, it said something like, "Oh, all right. Well, I hate her less." Like, "Oh, all right. Well, I hate her less." And then at the end, when she fires that hyperdrive right through the First Order fleet, holy shit! Dude.
Straight out of Rebels. Straight out of Rebels. I mean, it was fantastic.
Yeah. Oh man, she pulled a Harrison Dula and just.
As soon as she jumped in that seat, so I'm sitting by myself because I'm alone up here in Pennsylvania, and I'm sitting by myself, but to the right of me are probably a group of 5 18 to 20-year-olds, and they were just incensed, talking the entire time, everything that they were enjoying it. And as soon as she jumped in the seat, I just kind of whispered, "Holy shit, here it goes," because I had a feeling what she was going to do. And the one kid turned and looked at me, and I could see him. He kind of gave me a quizzical look. And when that ship started turning, he turned to his buddies and he's elbowing him. He's like, "Fucking go through them!" And sure enough, as soon as it happened,
There was this is kind of weird. I'll get to the point. When I was in marching band, there was one of my band teachers told us what the definition of music was, and it is the art of mixing silence.
Y'all keep the conversation going. I'll be back in just a second.
When that ship went through Snoke's ship, and it was just silence throughout the whole theater, that I think that felt a lot more powerful than anything they could have played audio-wise there.
No doubt, Brett. I mean, it sucked the sound out of the movie, and it sucked the sound out of like Joe said, we were in a packed theater, and it was another one of those moments. The sound was just gone. Everyone was just like,
yeah,
like no one was breathing. It's like all of our breaths were just taken out of us during that silence.
Exactly.
I know there was the only noise that I heard. We were sitting near a little kid, and he was like, "Whoa, they did it!" Oh, come on, man.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like, there's a lot of times I go in a theater and if you have a lot of kids around, you're like, okay, like your kid needs to turn it down a little bit. But just the level of sheer joy that you get out of everybody in the audience, but out of these kids that are this is their introduction to the Star Wars universe, and they're just amazed. Like, it's really joyful.
Yeah,
And those kids are each one of us, as we were when we were kids watching the series.
Right.
We see ourselves through their eyes for the most part.
Absolutely. Every time I watch a Star Wars movie, I am that 5-year-old kid sitting in the family room of a Ronald McDonald house, watching Star Wars for the first time. Every time I see a Star Wars movie, and we're getting them every year now, and it's still the exact same childish joy every time, and that's the magic of these Star Wars movies. And this movie delivered that in spades.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look good, man.
So let's just start moving through. Let's just go ahead and start moving through the story right now. So the escape from Dakar. Everything goes crazy in The Force Awakens. They're tracked to the planet Dakar. Here comes the First Order fleet, including one of the largest ships we've seen in the history of science fiction, this dreadnought. How freaking sweet was that thing?
I thought that was Snoke's ship at first, and then I was like, wait a second, no, that's not
Right.
No, well, I did at first too, Brett, because it's just like, while it's dwarfed in comparison, and you realize pretty quickly, based on what if you have seen any imagery or anything, it's no ship, you realize pretty quickly, but just that it dwarfs everything else in comparison. It's amazing.
Oh yeah,
I was a little shocked that I get that they have the massive cannons for Onslaught. I was a little surprised at how easily Poe took out their surface battery to be able to get bombers in.
And Poe Dameron,
oh yeah,
best X-wing pilot
Yeah.
in the Star Wars universe.
best
Yeah.
pilot in the freaking
Better than Luke Skywalker.
best pilot in the freaking galaxy. And he's not a Force sensitive guy. We're used to Jedi flying around,
Right.
doing these cool things, and
I
he's
mean-
just skilled.
That was fantastic.
Oh, and funny.
And enjoyable to watch.
When
It was like watching a Fast and the Furious movie in space.
yeah, that's actually a really good thing. And it was a wonderful.
That's a good analogy right there. I like that.
It really was. And it was a wonderful flashback to The Force Awakens, when he's in the village on Jakku and Kylo Ren's got him down on the ground and Kylo Ren's in his face and he's like, do I talk first? Do you talk first?
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of hard to
Smartass.
it's kind of hard to understand you in that apparatus.
He, he may not he may not be force sensitive, but he's very much strong in the snark.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What a wonderful character. Especially a wonderful character when you look back and see in the original script, all the way up till shooting the movie, Poe Dameron dies at the escape from the finalizer. He was supposed to have died. But Oscar Isaac's rendition of the character was so good that he stuck around. And I'm so glad he did. So glad he did. In that scene when, I got a private communique for General Hugs, Huff. Yeah.
Okay, so I might be alone.
I'll
Did
hold.
not like that.
You didn't like that scene.
I thought it was.
I didn't. I thought it was. There was just the first half hour. I felt like there was just entirely too much humor.
There was a lot of humor, yeah.
Which was enjoyable, but I felt like it was too much too quickly, and it would have been nicer if they would spread the humor out like they did later on as the movie progressed. But
Right.
it was very heady. It was very, I don't know.
It was heavy.
I don't know. It was just
There was
too
a lot of
too
humor.
emotional, too important. Too much stuff was happening, and Poe Dameron's being
I don't know. I
being
can
a
see
jagoff.
I can see where you're going with that, but that particular interaction, I absolutely see as an integral. Like that's Poe's character. Like he's going to talk like that,
Sure.
and
Right.
you know, Hux is this general that commands that commands all of them. But that whole can he hear me? Like I think I can see that actually playing out in the real world. It's so absurd that that's how people actually behave, though.
And you know, it's kind of apropos for today's, you know, the day's time. But you know, he was freaking with a Nazi, and it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
But I do completely understand your point, Shane. I really do. That's why I like that.
Plus, I think it kind of
What?
yeah. I think it goes along. I think it shows. I think it illustrates more of the growth of his character in the movie because you know he's that brash and that snarky in the very beginning, but then we see his character grow and mature by the very end. Would he have done the same thing at the very end if he was trying to distract Hux? You know, he was trying because he was distracting him to give him the thruster time to build up.
Yeah.
And so he was all brash and goofy. Would he, at the very end, when he says, you know, no, we've got to escape. We don't go help Luke Skywalker. We escape. He's doing this for a reason. Would he have done the same thing at the end?
Well, he probably would have been making cracking jokes, stuff like that, but he would have followed orders and got the heck out of Dodge.
A lot better.
Got, you know, an entire bomber fleet killed. Because that was, without a doubt, Poe Dameron's mess up. I mean, Cobalt Squadron is gone because Poe Dameron messed up. Of course, at the same time, had he not done that, just to flip things on its head, because that's what this entire movie is about, is flipping convention on your head. Had he not disobeyed Leia's orders and continued the assault on the Dreadnought, and Cobalt Squadron had not been successful in destroying the Dreadnought, would the Raddus and the fleet been able to stay on the run long enough to reach Crate? Or would those mega cannons would have laid the fleet out?
Yeah, no, I think I absolutely think they would have, because that's the whole point was with Snoke's ship, as large as it was, did not have that same level of firepower. That's why they were able to stay at a distance through the entirety of the chase and avoid getting obliterated by the barrage. If the Dreadnought had been there, it doesn't matter if they had gotten further away. You know, a couple of shots and they'd be done.
Yeah, a couple of comments from chat. Steven Stott says Poe kind of replaces Han in this regard. He goes, looking back at Han's responses in the first movie, much of the same way. He was always the one with the quick wit. Yeah, I think Poe Dameron is definitely the spiritual successor to Han Solo.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
But maybe where Han Solo at the end of Return of the Jedi in the new canon, you know, he went on, he helped liberate Kashyyyk, but after he helped liberate Kashyyyk, he went on to be a space jockey. You know, he ran a racing team for cash out of the galaxy, and he didn't stick around for the whole governmental thing, and it caused a big kind of butting heads between Han and Leia.
I think that Finn, Rey, and not Han, Poe are all spiritual successors to Luke, Leia, and Han.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All three of them will be a little bit more mature than even the original three were in the first place.
Yeah, well, they've definitely had a different path than the original three. You know, the original three didn't have it easy by any way, shape, or means, but they had a different path than these guys. You know, even at the end of Empire Strikes Back, yeah, the Rebel Alliance was run off of Hoth, but there was more than 20 of them left. You know, at the end of this movie, the Resistance fills the Millennium Falcon, and that's it.
With space.
All right, that leads me to a question. I know it's going to get off topic, but is anybody from can we assume that anybody we know at any other point in the Star Wars universe, from Rebels or anything, might potentially still be around?
I don't think so.
Hera would be the only one I would think, but in all likelihood, if Hera was still around, she's dead.
Well, we can assume that if Hera Syndulla is still around, if she's still active, she would have been fighting the First Order. She would have been right there with Leia the whole time.
Yes.
And then when they're on Crate and they get this distress signal out, and there's, they get confirmation that it's been received all across the galaxy, and no one answers. How depressing is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
Could it be like maybe the First Order may have such a hold on the Outer Rim that they're too scared to even to make a broadcast?
Yeah. That's nuts to me. That's just completely that's wild. It's crazy. Like the state of the Resistance at the end of Last Jedi is dire. I mean, it's just a handful of people.
It is, but like it's as depressing as it is to see no response. You have to think that not only who knows how oppressed these people are by the Order in the Outer Rim, but the galaxy just watched a new republic rise and be wiped out in essentially a single shot.
Yeah.
The Hosnian Cataclysm, as it's being called in canon now via the visual dictionary and stuff, had such an amazing effect on the galaxy. I mean, the Republic collapsed just like that. There's no government anymore. And then within just a few hours of that happening, the First Order, we didn't see it in the film, but we know from external sources, the visual dictionary and such, that the First Order immediately began moving inward, and that many systems had already capitulated. We're like, yep, that's it. We're done. We're First Order. Sieg Heil. Which is the state of the galaxy in going into Episode 9 is going to be one of, abject terror. Like, the Empire was bad. All right, the Empire was bad. But the Empire we didn't see the Empire in the early phases of conquering, prison camps, rounding people up, and the mass murders and everything that we know happened with the creation of the Empire. We didn't see that really. We're seeing bits and pieces of it in Rebels. We're getting some stuff in the Darth Vader comics and some of the new saga canon stuff. But this rise to power of the First Order was so fast and so violent that it's a little staggering.
If anything, the First Order scares me more than the Empire did.
Definitely.
It's more militant, more crushing you under the Empire. Empire would certainly crush you under its boot heel, but there was some give there. There was a semblance of, we're doing this so there will be order in the galaxy, and if you're not human, you're not worth anything in our eyes, but we still want to have structure. And the Order is just like, we're just going to steamroll everything that doesn't immediately conform.
Yeah,
we're not even going to give you a chance. There's no show of mercy. Just boom, done.
Yeah, the First Order is absolutely menacing. It's going to be pretty wild to see what happens in Episode 9, especially with Kylo Ren as Supreme Leader instead of Snoke. Yeah, so we'll talk about let's switch gears from the Resistance now and the military aspect of what happened in the Last Jedi. Let's go ahead and switch to the more mystical fantasy stuff. Let's start at Achto
Hold on,
or
Freeze,
Actu.
Wait, before we leave the military, let's have a moment of silence for Admiral Akbar, please.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the entire Resistance leadership vaporized.
Yeah, screw the leadership. Admiral Akbar, man.
Yeah,
It's a trap.
it's a trap.
I mean,
A trap.
It was a trap, and I'm dead.
God.
It's a trap.
Man, it's brutal. This movie, for every laugh,
Unexpectedly brutal.
and for every laugh this movie delivered, there was a brutal, jaw-dropping counterpart.
Kicking the nuts.
You know, it was that rise and fall, the legit, like straight up emotional roller coaster.
Yep.
So, Achto, whatever, however you want to pronounce it. Good old Rey presents Luke Skywalker his lightsaber, and he throws it away.
So that was the first point where I knew this movie was not going to give me anything I expected, because I didn't.
Yeah.
Now, did you cover that in your spoiler video?
Yes, that was what I covered in my spoiler video. Was what happened.
So glad I didn't watch that, because that moment was just great.
I wish I had never, at work, grabbed that book off the shelf and go, "Oh, I'm scanning this and making a video." Of course, at the same time, I'm kind of glad I did. I picked up 320 subscribers off of that. So, hey, welcome to all the new subscribers.
Hey, there you go.
I just hit the 500
Please
subscriber
comment,
mark.
subscribe. Nice.
All right, Craig.
Jason Bullock goes, Luke acted more like Mark Hamill than Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that. I felt that this was very much. So go ahead, Brett. Why do you feel that way?
Okay, there was definitely Luke there because he was playing Luke, but it was definitely like you could feel Mark Hamill fucking around in there a little bit, or sorry, messing around in there a little bit.
You got me demonetized, man.
Sorry.
Brett, we
get one. I'm sorry.
Everybody gets
Brett, are
one.
you saying it's like if you're playing your D&D character, and like you're still playing your character, but you slip out a little bit into yourself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was Mark Hamill messing with Rey while wearing Luke Skywalker's clothes at certain points.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, he was sassy. He was snarky. He was funny.
Yeah, you can definitely tell that Luke Skywalker was trained by Yoda.
Oh, Yoda.
Yeah, we'll get there.
I think Luke has always had a fair bit of snark and sass to begin with. Like he
just wanted to go
had
to
that little bit of
station to pick up
spit.
some power converters.
I mean, that's not too much.
No, but I mean, he had that spit to continue to needle Han into going to rescue this princess that he knew nothing about in the beginning. Like he's always had a little bit of that, I think.
Yeah. I found myself just completely mesmerized by the Octus and Rey's interaction with Luke, and Luke's reluctance to teach Rey, and then how the Force really made that decision. When it really came down to it, the Force was sitting there just jabbing Luke, like, "No, this has to happen. This has to happen. This has to happen."
Well, I think that that's one thing that I got out of a lot of. I know I'm still talking about this specifically, but throughout the entire movie was the Force guiding people. Like no, stop. I'm going to show you this. This is what needs to happen right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. The did y'all's audience have as big a reaction as mine, Nick, and Kevin's did to Luke drinking the green milk?
Yeah, that was fun.
That was awesome. That was really cool.
It didn't bother me as much to see him milking a mammal but just to immediately grab the bottle and swig from it right there, fresh and warm out of elephant walrus tit.
See, what he doesn't realize is that the First Order has an FDA representative on their way right now to fine Luke Skywalker for drinking unpasteurized milk.
Yeah.
It almost seemed like an unnecessary scene, but one that added a little bit of levity to an otherwise consistently monotonous set of scenes with Rey just following him around.
Well, I agree with you, Shane.
Pete S. and Chad just had the hashtag unpasteurized blue milk. Here we go.
I do think, Shane, that maybe it wasn't completely necessary, but it certainly helps drive home this crazed hermit sort of image that Luke is trying to project onto Rey. I'm just a crazy old man. What are you doing? Go away.
Right, yeah, I mean, I just was waiting for him to start yelling at the seagulls.
Right.
Singing a song.
Get off my lawn!
Just waiting for him to talk about seagulls pecking him in the head.
Right.
Some very interesting things that we learned in the visual dictionary that kind of expanded on what was going on there. When Luke, he separated himself from the Force, which was mentioned in the film. But the visual dictionary speaks about how Ahch-To has a very similar kind of presence in the Force that Dagobah, and it specifically mentioned Mortis from the Mortis arc from the Clone Wars. Time kind of loses meaning there. So Luke didn't even know how long he had really been on that island. Kind of reminds me a little bit of a little RPG that's being played, but that's neither here nor there. That's a whole other story. But I found that pretty interesting, that he had just been so closed off, and time there was so weird that he didn't really even know how long he had been there.
And what speaks largely to that was his disconnect from the Force. He'd been there so long that in his mind, like you said, he might not have known how long he was there, but he was there for so long, and he disconnected from his own reality so much that he just disconnected and unplugged from the Force. I mean, yes, we all finally, the realization that Snoke was the one connecting Rey and Ren, but he couldn't see any of that. He wasn't in tune with any of that. He had no idea why Rey was even there. I mean, that's not the Luke Skywalker that we left in Episode 6.
It's true.
This is a guy that's completely different from who he was, and has just forsaken everything that he was the anti-Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's how I viewed him.
Well, maybe not even, maybe a little bit, yeah. But at the same time, he had a very similar path to Obi-Wan Kenobi. He was.
I mean, that's true.
Arrogant enough to think that he could train somebody that had that much darkness in him, and then messed it up, and then created a force of evil that laid waste to the galaxy and kind of had to go into hiding. There's a very, very strong Obi-Wan Kenobi parallels there. But Obi-Wan didn't close himself off from the Force. Obi-Wan continued to train under Qui-Gon.
That's exactly what I was going to say. To the whole thing, though, Obi-Wan and Leia have always been two of the most infallible characters because they recognize their flaws. They're strong in their convictions and in their beliefs, whether they were wrong or they were right. And Obi-Wan continued to be communing with the Force, probably communing with Qui-Gon, staying in connection with who he was and what he is, whereas Luke just shut himself off completely.
Obi-Wan may have also watched his Padawan go to the dark side and realize that he messed up, but that was more him. He didn't pay enough attention. It's hard to pay attention when your Padawan is, spending time on the other side of the galaxy and y'all are generals fighting a war.
Yeah.
Versus like whatever intention he had, whatever the Force told him or pushed him to at the time, Luke standing over his Padawan with a lightsaber lit, contemplating ending him.
Yeah, and no matter how briefly it was, that was a larger mistake than what Obi-Wan Kenobi did.
I think so.
Obi-Wan Kenobi's mistakes were wrapped around not paying more attention to the relationship between Anakin and Padme. His mistakes were wrapped around trying to force Anakin into this Jedi mold that was ultimately dogmatic, and as Luke even mentioned, one of the mistakes of the Jedi Order that led to its fall. Luke's mistake was very much more apparent. He spoke of this momentary flash of instinct and got caught. So I feel bad for Luke. Like at the end of the film, when Luke is confronting Kylo Ren, or Ben, I mean, let's honestly, he's Ben. And Kylo Ren's like, so have you come to forgive me or for anything like that? And Luke goes, no.
No.
And he goes, I'm sorry, I failed you. He didn't go there to admonish Kylo Ren. He went there to make amends for what had happened. Pete S. asked, whose story do we believe about Ben being almost slaughtered? I think the point of this movie is that the truth is always in the middle.
Yep, exactly.
That's one of the themes of this movie.
Kylo's story was true to him, and Luke's story was true to him.
Yeah,
there was the thing that happened, and both of them have the truth as they saw it. And that's Kylo, like he's vicious. The Supreme Leader is like the holding Hux, like the Supreme Leader is dead. Oh, long live the Supreme Leader! Like he's definitely there as, and I think that the probable time jump to the next one, we'll see that develop. But at the same time, through this entire movie, I don't know about y'all, but you see that fear that he is still that there's still that little boy that's scared in him, especially when he tells them to open up every gun they have.
Yeah.
On
Luke and Ben's stories. It all depends on their own points of view. To tie it back to Obi-Wan,
which has been one of the main themes of the entire Star Wars saga. Yeah, many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view. As we even saw what had happened when Rey, pulled a, Dagobah Luke Skywalker and goes, no, there's good in him. Well, actually more of a Return of the Jedi Luke Skywalker. This movie had more in common with Return of the Jedi than it did Empire Strikes Back, by the way. But, when Rey has that confrontation with Luke Skywalker, and is like, there's good in him. I know there is. If I go to him, I can turn him back, and this could be what we need to end this war. He could be our hope. Because there she goes. And there she goes. She tries to hand that lightsaber to Luke one more time, and Luke goes, I want it. And then Rey's like, okay, well, if you don't want it, I'm not a Jedi. Ben Solo is, and he can turn to the light side, and we can take care of Snoke, and we can end this war. And she goes that way. And when she lands on the supremacy, that entire sequence from Rey landing on the Supremacy to the Skywalker family saber exploding, holy crap.
The Praetorian,
Holy crap.
Yeah.
that fight was outrageous.
I was not expecting Snoke to die in this movie.
No.
I thought it would be a continued progression, that it would follow the same kind of, I'm a better student of Star Wars than to know that, because George Lucas himself says Star Wars doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And this was the rhyme to Return of the Jedi. It is not a repeat; it's a rhyming scheme. And man, when Ben started turning that saber, I'm like, no.
And Snoke is he's narrating the whole thing.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's like I sensed where there was conflict, I now sense resolve. Yeah, to kill you, dude.
Yep.
Yeah, he was.
But as effortlessly and as powerfully as Snoke was able to wield the Force, you still don't see it coming. Kylo does have that strength of resolve now, and he has decided they aren't Sith, but the apprentice is the apprentice no more. Kills the master and takes the mantle there. It was a brilliant.
The prophecy said,
and
Sith
I might
would
catch
fall, not darkness.
And I may catch flack from Shane on this one as far as best lightsaber battle ever in Star Wars, but that entire sequence with them fighting together against the Praetorian, and then the Force fight over the saber at the end.
Yeah,
that was great. See, I kind of wonder if it was the Kyber crystal inside the saber that was reacting to the Force energy between them. That
I think so. I mean,
so many questions.
Shit, they look like two Super Saiyans charging up at each other.
Yeah, that is not inaccurate. Just like golden glows and their hair stands up and changes color. I mean, that would have been pretty badass. That was a very dynamic fight sequence that had happened right then. Like just little things that occurred, and like Kylo Ren like throwing one dude into the other, or using the quinions on his the cross beams on his saber to block and trap these double attacks, and then moving through. So you seeing, and
look, that one point where Rey where he's pulled back and Rey tosses her saber over and he just catches it and instantly ignites it right through his face.
Or when Rey's cat, she drops the saber out of one hand, drops low, picks it up, and just
that was yes,
that was great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So good.
Brett, speak up, Brett. Speak up, Brett. You had two fingers up.
I have to go eat dinner and go to sleep for work in the morning.
Yeah, I have to.
Oh, we love you, Jeff.
I have to be at work at 5 a.m. myself to receive the truck. So glad you could join us, man. Have a good. We'll be doing part 2 of this discussion probably tomorrow night. Because we haven't even. I'm going to run this for about 5 or 6 more minutes, and we haven't even scratched the surface of this movie yet.
No.
Okay, I do want to say that whenever the two of them, Rey and Ren, were in there talking, or going against Snoke, and the Praetorian Guard just like came to life all at once, and just got in their attack positions. That was like when I knew. I kind of like moved to the edge of my seat. It's like, okay, it's gonna get real quick.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
like you said, that entire sequence was really fantastic.
I kind of feel like we might be getting a little ahead of ourselves now. To really understand this sequence, we have to step back to Act 2 when Rey and Kylo Ren started forming their connection and started having these conversations. You know, Snoke says that he's the one that allowed that conversation and bridged their minds. But remember, one of the truths about Star Wars, the dark side are a bunch of liars.
Yeah, I think it's something that he sensed and maybe thought he could manipulate or utilize at some point if it came up. But I really absolutely believe that it was the Force itself that connected them, and I think they're still connected.
To what greater end?
Balance.
Who can say? It's
I had the idea, and I spoke this briefly last night in the parking lot of the movie theater with Kevin and Nick, that we're at the beginning of another 1,000-year cycle. You know, the previous cycle was the Sith War that ended with the formation of the Republic and the institution of the Rule of Two by Darth Bane. That's canon. That's all we know about that time period as being canon, but we do know that as canon. You know, 1,000 years ago, the Republic was founded, or not founded, but had kind of reconstituted itself. Bane instituted the Rule of Two, and then the Sith disappeared, and it was 1,000 years of peace. And then the cycle jumped back up. With, you know, the Chosen One and the balancing of the Force and all these things that had happened. I feel that the Anakin Skywalker story was the ending of one cycle. The Rey Kylo Ren story is the beginning of the next cycle. Whatever that turns out to be. You know, might not be Jedi, might not be Sith, it might be something else completely, because it's a blank slate and the future is completely open for whatever they want to throw at us, and I can't wait to see what it is. But I feel like this is the beginning of the next kind of cycle in the Force.
Does Ben Solo have to be redeemed for this trilogy to, I don't want to say make sense, because that's not right, but does he have to be redeemed for this trilogy to have as much importance as the original trilogy did with Vader's redemption?
Star Wars is about forgiveness. Star Wars is about forgiveness, and it's about moving beyond the mistakes of our past. It's about a lot of things, but that's part of the story. I don't know if it has to, but
it seems like he's too far gone now.
Maybe, but that's not up for us to decide. That's up for Rey to decide.
Right.
That's up to Rey.
Anakin killed a temple full of younglings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Younglings? Yeah. Did you say yinglings?
Yingling. He was killing yinglings.
Master Skywalker is still here, but what are we going to do?
Pete S. and Chad goes, it's not a coincidence they could both commune with each other, and Luke can project himself that far out to Ben. It's the Force, and it is definitely awake.
Maybe it's maybe it's like maybe it's not about anybody else it's forgiveness. Maybe it's about Ben Solo forgiving himself for the things that he's done.
Yes, because it wasn't until that happened that Anakin Skywalker had just said no and chucked the Emperor over the railings.
I would have loved to see me an Anakin Force Ghost.
I'm still kind of moving forward, because if anything inside Kylo Ren's brain, the conflict is going to grow, because again, it's that foreshadowing. It's that foreshadowing that is a big part of telling these types of stories. Han predicted it. Snoke's going to betray you. He just wants you for your power. He's going to betray you, and look what almost happened. Then Luke, at the end of the movie, he was like, if you strike me down in anger, I will be with you forever, just like your father. Which, just dug that knife in Kylo Ren's side.
To become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
I think he's going to be even more conflicted in 9. But I don't know. I don't know if he can be redeemed. I don't know.
Remember for how long we had all talked about how Rey, the possibility for Rey to fall to the dark side and Ben to be redeemed to the light side.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, that was just our theory, but I feel like walking out after watching it only once, but I feel like that might be thrown completely out the window.
Maybe.
I mean, Rey is just. I think Rey is too strong in light.
The problem, we could see something where he's redeemed and Rey falls. The whole thing is, at this point, I really feel like the Force has pulled them together. Sort of the Force itself right now is the fulcrum between the two in the dark. So it's not that he can't be redeemed. It's that if he is redeemed and moves to the light, balance, where's the dark at that point?
Yeah. P-Ness has another great point. He says, Ben kills dad. Ben hesitates with mom. Ben kills teacher. Ben attempted to kill uncle. He has so much internal conflict from being belittled by Snoke that he has no true identity. Like, he still doesn't know who he is. Like, who is Ben Solo? Is he nothing more than Vader's grandson? Can he be more than Vader? Or is he just determined to be the next Vader? I don't think he knows.
Yeah. We are what we rise above.
Absolutely. As Yoda said. And tomorrow night, if y'all are available, we can do this again tomorrow night because we got a lot more to talk about. Like, we've barely even scratched. Yeah, we've barely even scratched the surface on this movie. Like, we still need to talk about
Yoda's Force Ghost, like pulling lightning.
We haven't talked about we haven't talked about Yoda yet. We haven't talked about the Jedi Temple yet. We haven't really talked about Rey's training and Rey at the end of the movie, or Finn at all, or
time out.
Or
freeze.
The little boy at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Or Rose.
Who expected Finn to just straight sacrifice himself? Who thought it was going to happen?
I'm like, oh man, are they really going to kill Finn? I
did. I thought it. I did.
Yeah. Because imagine the stormtrooper going like, I don't have anything. I couldn't fight for I've been raised my entire life to fight. I can't fight for the First Order, but I can fight for the Resistance, and I could die for the Resistance. And I was just like,
that Phasma Finn fight was awesome too.
Oh God, yeah. Like I said, we haven't even scratched the surface of this movie.
I'm in love with Rose.
Oh yeah, Rose is great. She's what a wonderful character.
Love her.
Kelly Marie Tran. She was such a lovely addition to Star Wars. I want little Finn and Rose babies in the next trilogy. I really do. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna call this tonight, guys. Thank you all. Thanks very much for partaking in this, and hopefully we can get everybody back here tomorrow night about the same time, and we can do part 2. We'll probably be in part 3, 4, 5, 10, 20. We're going to be talking about this movie forever. We really are. Thank you all very much for watching. Thank you for the chat. I got a lot of the guys in chat are the same guys that are in our Exploring Star Trek Discovery weekly show. That's awesome. These guys are great in chat. Thank you, chat room. And we will pick this up again. I am Average Joe, the Average Geek. For my Jedi Council down here, Kevin Stallings, Nick Thompson, Shane Barzani, and Will Smith. Yeah, great movie. We'll talk about some more later. May the Force be with you. Good night.